Another prediction that I made was that there's going to be, at the time I said 2 crowds of people, mainly 2.5 crowds. There's going to be 2 crowds of people. There's going to be WoW players or WoW fans that generally don't like Final Fantasy XIV, and they're going to try to make it as hard as possible for him to enjoy Final Fantasy because of insecurities or whatever reasons you can think of. That's going to try to troll and derail him. And a lot of those people, I mean, there's a segment of his chat and community that just do that anyway. They like WoW, but they try to make his life miserable in WoW for whatever reasons. That's one crowd. And then the other crowd is going to be Final Fantasy XIV players who either know of his reputation as being toxic because, you know, in a competitive game like WoW, a lot of people are toxic by Final Fantasy XIV standards. And the Final Fantasy XIV players who will view him as toxic or just don't like him or don't like WoW, and they are going to try to make his life miserable so that he would leave the game alone. And what I want to talk about is Asmongold's first day of Final Fantasy XIV. If you don't know, Asmongold is a top WoW streamer, and I predicted a lot of what would happen. First, let me just summarize what happened. He stated a couple weeks ago that he was going to try Final Fantasy XIV. You know, that was a big deal because, you know, up until that, he proclaimed that he would not try it because he wasn't into the aesthetics. Didn't look like the game for him. So he changed his attitude and said, okay, at least I'll try it. Which was cool because I think people have been wanting him to try it, right? So that day was today, or yesterday. It was July 3rd that he tried it. And a lot of us made predictions. My predictions were that his chat / community / viewers were going to make it very difficult for him to enjoy the game. And there's a high danger that it could ruin it for him. And a lot of us, including myself, said he probably would be better served to do it off stream. But he gave his rationale behind doing it on stream, and I respected that. He wanted to take the journey with the stream, on stream mostly, and he kind of wanted to safeguard himself from future ridicule. He's taken every preparation he can to ensure that people don't try to immediately disqualify his opinion of the game. Number one, he's not going to boost. He's not going to skip. He says he's going to play through the whole story. He's going to try to reach max level. And he even said today that he's going to try to finish an ultimate. So as someone who has reviewed MMOs often, I respect that because I hate people who review MMOs after like doing like 1/50th of the content. It's not fair to the MMO. That's why I tend to label my MMO impressions and reviews as first impressions, because you typically don't get to endgame when you review an MMO. You just don't have enough time. It takes so long to get there. And I know PC Gamer and a bunch of other people that review MMOs, they go out of their way to say it's in progress. This is an in progress review as we make our way to the end game. So Asmon, he made that pact that he was going to, that he was going to give it a fair shake. So a lot of us made predictions that his chat community / viewers were going to try to ruin it, and we're going to make it as difficult as possible. Another prediction that I made was that there's going to be, at the time I said 2 crowds of people, mainly 2.5 crowds. There's going to be 2 crowds of people. There's going to be WoW players or WoW fans that generally don't like Final Fantasy XIV, and they're going to try to make it as hard as possible for him to enjoy Final Fantasy because of insecurities or whatever reasons you can think of. That's going to try to troll and derail him. And a lot of those people, I mean, there's a segment of his chat and community that just do that anyway. They like WoW, but they try to make his life miserable in WoW for whatever reasons. That's one crowd. And then the other crowd is going to be Final Fantasy XIV players who either know of his reputation as being toxic because, in a competitive game like WoW, a lot of people are toxic by Final Fantasy XIV standards. And the Final Fantasy XIV players who will view him as toxic or just don't like him or don't like WoW, And they are going to try to make his life miserable so that he would leave the game alone. The term that people are using is called gatekeeping. And it's been going on for a long time. It's been happening since Call of Duty, Battlefield, League of Legends, Dota, what else? Mario and Sonic. My goodness. It goes back years where people are so passionate about their game that they tend to defend it with steel, brass, and honor. So those were the predictions that I made, and a lot of it came true today. I knew it was going to be a big day when he was on his start screen and he was already at 50K viewers. I was like, oh gosh. I said we're easily going to hit 100K. And then we hit 100K before he even started streaming Final Fantasy, because he was like doing his pre-show stuff, which makes a ton of views on YouTube. And he was already at 100K. I was like, well, are we going to hit 200K? Lo and behold, 200K viewers were watching Asmongold play Final Fantasy XIV, and we were number 3 on Twitch, behind Just Chatting and League of Legends. And League of Legends is going through LCK right now. So that's huge. That's bigger than, that's something I didn't predict. I predicted 100K. I did not think we'd hit 200K. And when I stopped watching, he was already at 6,000 new subscribers. It was a huge day for him. Give or take whatever happened, whatever the outcome was for the stream, it was a huge day for Asmongold. The dude had a big day for streaming. And it was a big day for Final Fantasy XIV too, which is the title of my stream right now. It was a big day. So let's talk about what happened. Well, I had a GIF up. Yes, I said GIF. I had a GIF up in our Final Fantasy General channel on our Discord. And I said, man, I'm tired of being right. It's the Jim Carrey. He's like, man, I'm tired of being right. And I was like, watch. He went through the, first I said the servers were going to crumble, which they kind of didn't. But, you know, as he picked the server, he was choosing a character. As he was choosing a server, the servers were closing to new players. He was like, okay, let's go to Adamantois, the turtle. And that will close. He was like, all right, let's go to this one. And that closed. It's like people were rushing to create new accounts on the server that he was choosing. Then he finally went to Cactar, and then Cactar closed. So he had a huge effect. So it was a lot of new players. Now, before you try to, glean your own conclusions on who these new players were, I can tell you that it was either just Final Fantasy players that have an account on another server and they wanted to just mess with them. There's probably new trial players coming from WoW that want to just play along with them. And then there's just people that just want to get on the screen and go, hi, mom. And there's a lot of that. There's just a lot of that. Those people don't necessarily troll. They're not getting on there to troll him. They just want to be on TV. Because there's a 200,000 viewer audience. They just want to show off their turtle mount. They want to show off their hard to mount. That happens all the time, dude. When I first started streaming this game, people would show up on my stream, get on their mount, and be like, look at me. Because that's MMOs. MMORPGs in a nutshell. Look at me. Don't you want this? It's all about flexing. That's MMOs, man. It's all about flexing. You work hard so that you can flex. Don't let anybody tell you any otherwise. You're not getting that mount because you think it looks good. You're getting that mount so that you think it looks good and you want people to envy that you got it. It's the flex effect, right? So you could tell it was going to be bad. So he was going through the tutorial, and I said this in Discord. I was like, soon as he leaves that tutorial instance, there's going to be holy spam, which is a white mage spell with booms and explosions. I said astrologian spam, all kinds of spam. And lo and behold, as soon as he stepped out, well, actually, he couldn't even step out at first. I forgot about this. The instance was locked. It was overflowing. It was overcrowded. And he couldn't even get out of the tutorial instance. So you knew it was going to be bad. I was like, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before in my life. I think the only time I've seen something similar to that was when they came out, I think it was Stormblood, where they had instance overcrowding issues, right? And that's when they introduced like the multiple instance feature in a later patch. I think it was Stormblood when they introduced that. So instances were being overcrowded, the starter instances, because there was too many players. That was the only time I saw that, and that was a launch of an expansion. This was just him, one guy, one person, doing the tutorial in Limsa on Cactar And the instance of Limsa was full. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, this is incredible. It was insane. It was actually unprecedented. And everybody in the chat that I was reading, they were like, in my 6.5 years of playing this game, I have never seen this before. So it was unprecedented. It was huge. And I knew it was going to be. It was a big build up to this. And he was smart. Asmon was very smart to like hype this up and say, I'm going to play on this day. Okay, everybody, all the word of mouth spread. And so boom, 200K viewers, 6,000 new subs plus. It was huge. So let's talk about what actually happened though. So another streamer by the name of Co Carnage, right? He started playing this on Friday. I think it was Friday. And he had a similar experience where he came out and there was a ton of people following him. And Co took a very lighthearted approach. He was like, oh, this is cool. Everybody's just want to hang out, blah, blah, blah. He was very understanding about it. And it was a lot of people, right? They weren't necessarily trolling him. They weren't necessarily trying to make his life miserable. Like I said, they just wanted to be on TV. And they just want to follow their favorite streamer. They just want to be there for him. They want to maybe toss him a heel if he gets low. You know, that's how MMOs are. So it's nothing to be expected. Now, the issue with Asmon is that he had that with 200,000 people watching him. He had that. On top of that, he had those two crowds I talked about earlier. The people from WoW that want to sabotage him and the people from Final Fantasy XIV that want to sabotage him. So it was a perfect conglomeration of just a hot ball of garbage mess. It was just destroying everything, right? But don't make the mistake that a lot of people are making on social media and everywhere else. They're saying that this is the Final Fantasy community being toxic. They're saying that this is the WoW community being toxic. They're saying that this is the Asmongold community being toxic. It's a perfect storm of all those things I named. And with trolling like this, there's always impersonators. There's going to be WoW players impersonating Final Fantasy XIV people. They're going to go to their little playbook. They're going to get their script and they're going to say the typical things that Final Fantasy gatekeepers say. And then there's going to be the vice versa. There's going to be Final Fantasy players pretending to be WoW players, all to get what they want. At the end of the day, it's just really upsetting behavior. It's upsetting behavior that people will go to this far to protect their passion. And I use that word heavily because gaming is a passion for a lot of people. And it's really disingenuous to just say that it's just a game. You know, I think Ninja said it best with his meme, but it's just a game. It's not, you really can't say that because let's say you're a passionate artist. You like to draw, or you're a passionate, car restorer. You like to restore cars, or you're a passionate traveler. You like to travel the world. You're a passionate sailor. You like to sail on your sailboat. You like to fish. You know, you take that stuff seriously, right? Even though it's a hobby, even though it's like something that's not life or death, this is something that you really get joy and pleasure out of your life. So while it's not life or death, it is entertainment. It's kind of hard for a third party to just come in and just dismiss it. Right? Someone takes something that you love and just dismissively say it's just a game. Why don't you just stop? Right? So while I know the limitations of entertainment, I always talk about it's just entertainment. You shouldn't take it too seriously. I do understand that passions are different. Passions are something that you apply a lot of your time to. You dedicate your life to a lot of it. And it fulfills you. It makes you who you are in a lot of different ways. Right? So these people are passionate, but they're expressing it in a way that's upsetting, especially when you talk about it in a way of when you gather thousands of people together. And I think that's what happened today. It was a perfect storm of all these things. Now, Asmongold has earned a reputation of being toxic. He himself said on his stream and on the podcast he's on that if he behaves the way that he behaves in WoW, he would be banned 10 times over, 50 times over, because he admits to being a trash talker. That, to me, I'm not gonna say there's nothing wrong with that, but that's expected in a competitive game like World of Warcraft, because I've had this discussion before. World of Warcraft is a competitive game, unlike Final Fantasy XIV. It is a competitive game. The nature of the game is Horde versus Alliance, competitive. PvP is rampant. It is encouraged. Blah, blah, blah. But Blizzard encourages parsers. They encourage logs. They encourage leaderboards. They encourage world firsts. It is a competitive game, PvE and PvP. So to be a trash talker coming in WoW, it's expected. That is different in Final Fantasy XIV, and Asmongold understood that. He even said that when I play Final Fantasy, I'm not going to do those things because I'll get banned. So it's understood. It's understandable that some people in the Final Fantasy community might frown on him bringing his large community to Final Fantasy. But in all honesty, I don't think there was a lot of people taking action. I think it was a very small amount of actual Final Fantasy 14s taking action because of that. And we referenced a tweet. That apparently there was somebody posing to be a Final Fantasy 14 player saying that we won't tolerate Asmon in our community. We need to make sure, basically it was a call to arms to ruin his day. And I don't know if it was an actual Final Fantasy 14 player or not. That's why I say alleged. It could have been a WoW player. It could have been a Final Fantasy 14 player. It could have been a RuneScape player for all I know. People like to take evidence like that and they like to extrapolate it and come up with these wild conclusions that, oh, I thought this was supposed to be a friendly community. We saw today that the Final Fantasy community is actually toxic. Yeah. Film at 11. People are glorifying and sensationalizing this and extrapolating stuff based on really weak evidence. All in all, it was a good day for Final Fantasy 14, and all in all, it was a great day for Asmongold financially. But I gotta wonder about his mental state, because I've seen him melt down on stream before, and I could see him getting anxious because he reads his chat, man. He reads his chat, and I don't know how he does it. The guy glances over at his screen, reads 3,000 lines, and goes back to playing the game, and he takes in everything. He's like, okay, do this, do that. Somebody posted a paragraph of detailed instructions on how to hide a majority of other player models. He glances at it and proceeds to do all the instructions. I'm like, this guy is mentally gifted. I was like, and I typed this in our Discord. I was like, he really can follow instructions very well, because the Final Fantasy 14 settings are really, really complicated, convoluted, and very Japanese. And I mean that in a loving way. Listen, Japan, y'all got some user interface specialness. Y'all really do. So it was really, really, really impressive to see that he reads his chat, and I got a feeling that that was taking its toll on him, especially when people were telling him to call a GM. And this is where I got annoyed. I was getting annoyed for him. Everybody was like, call a GM, call a GM, call a GM, call a GM. Tell them to put you in a dedicated instance. And he's like, okay. He was like, no, I don't want to do that, because he knew that here I am with 200,000 viewers. What are they going to do? He's like, I played other games. They're not going to do anything. So people are like, no, it's different. He's like, all right, I'll try it. So he put in I'll admit, it was a lazy ticket. He's just like, I'm trying to play. People are ruining my day. Come help. And nothing happened, right? And so chat kept badgering him to check your GMs, check if the GM responded, check what the GM responded. It was getting on my nerves. And so he checked, and he was like, listen, I checked. You guys see this, right? He was very calm about it. He was like, you see this, right? I've checked. There's no message from GM. Mods time out anybody else who mentions it for the entire day. And I was like, that's how you manage a 200K chat, for real. Because it was getting out of control. It was really, really getting out of control, that people were badgering him. And he reads, like I said, if he didn't read chat, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. And I have seen other WoW players come and play Final Fantasy, and they get into a raid, they get into anything, and they just ignore chat until they're done, which is fine. That's just the way some people stream. But it was upsetting. Upsetting is the word I'd like to choose, that people went out of their way to kill all of the quest creatures that he had to do. And if you've ever come from WoW, from Final Fantasy, targeting could be a little bit of a challenge at first. So he's trying to target NPCs, and I literally saw this. People were jumping in front of him to prevent him from targeting the NPCs to get the quests. They were jumping. Not jumping to, hey, look at me. No, they were jumping in the way. And that was disgusting. I was just like, why are you doing that? Like I said, it was cool and wild because his community does that to him all the time. He even said, I'm used to this, right? Because they're just being idiots and trolling. And he's like, all right, I roll with it. Which is probably why he has like hidden characters that he plays off stream because he don't want people to follow him. But to just do that for hours, and it was like 4 or 5, 6 hours, I was just like, this is really, really crazy that there's some people out there that would do that. So I'm going to take the tact of, I'm not going to blame the WoW community. I'm not going to blame the Final Fantasy community. I'm just going to blame the general toxic, really, really toxic gaming community. Because it's not one game or the other. It's a little bit of both. And like I said, there's a mixture of motivations behind those people that we really can't tell from our perspective. So to make that conclusion from our perspective would be inaccurate.